Rive is not that good of an item. Uh, I'll be honest, I think GGG just kind of forgot about it, or at least until it got its Foulborn version, which is actually good. The Foulborn version replaces one of the lines with physical skills have 1% increased duration per 12 intelligence. There's a lot of fun things you can do with this, and today we're abusing Seismic Trap with it. Now, Seismic Trap is a physical spell skill that leaves down a lot of earthquakes on the ground, and it's around 4 seconds the average duration. But with all of our intelligence stacking that we currently have, we have well over a 17-second duration for our Seismic Trap, and we don't have that much skill effect duration investment other than one wheel and our intelligence. So we're getting 4 times as much duration on our Seismic Trap just by having intelligence, and that is ridiculous. Let me tell you, there's a lot of other things that's ridiculous with it, but that's the main thing that's ridiculous, is just a long duration Seismic Trap. Now, there is a few issues with this. It's a lot like Poison, where it has like quote unquote fake DPS a little bit, where like, you know, if the boss moves out of the AoE, you have less damage. So bosses that move around a bunch like Sirius is not good for this build. Also, as well, this build is not good at anything that requires you to actually look at the ground and look at the degens under you, look at like enemies under you. Like, so Maven's memory game is almost impossible if your Seismic Traps are going off. And let me tell you, I tried. Oh my god, is it a pain in the ass? We'll just need more damage, right? But there are things that this build will be good at, and there are things that this build will not be good at. Currently, I'm Invitation running, and that seems to be pretty efficient for that. Now, the damage is high, but it's not high enough to the point where we're absolutely deleting everything. But we're getting there. But we are also very tanky because we're intelligence stacking. So that means we get a lot of energy shield, right? So we just put some energy shield on our gear and we get a lot of increased energy shield, and we end up with like 8k energy shield. We have evasion as well. We have like 30% chance to block as well because we're running 2 claws. By the way, that's really good. All of that combined just leads us to be very tanky, where we can just stand inside everything. We can just stand there and just wait for our Seismic Traps to kill stuff, which is very convenient, mind you. That's really cool. Another thing that we're abusing is we're abusing the Nameless Bloodline. So the Nameless Bloodline is very strong for stat stacker builds because helical rings exist. Helical rings give you a very large amount of flat attributes. These flat attributes can be, you know, used for, let's say, physical duration for your skills, right? So if we put int on all our rings and we get percent in, we can get a lot of intelligence, and that not only increases our survivability with our ES, but it also increases our damage significantly. Now, that's really cool, but the problem is you have to disable something. And in this case, we're disabling our utility flasks. Because this build is going to be doing a bunch of bossing and stuff like that, we're not actually using our utility flasks that often in boss fights unless we have like some investment into, you know, flask effect duration and, you know, flash charges gained. We're not a Pathfinder. So I decided to eschew my mortality, get rid of my utility flasks, and now we're just running a bunch of life flasks. Now, wait. Life flasks? You're playing CI, Dread. That makes no sense. Well, let me show you Supreme Decadence. Supreme Decadence reads, life recovery for your flasks is now given to your ES as well. Now, something important as well is very important here, because what ends up happening is if we run a normal life flask, it will immediately stop because we're at full life the whole time because we're CI. But if we run instant recovery life flasks, like I have 4 instant recovery life flasks, what ends up happening is we can just simply spam the life flasks and get some ES. This, as an extra defense layer, is absurdly strong. We have a little bit of flask charges gained per second on our chest, and we can even take the Rizlotha Pantheon if we want to. And these two things combined means that whenever I need like a burst of energy shield, I just blast piano like a crazy person, and I'm fine. Because not only do we have that, we also have you know, the Ghost Dance. Like, we have a lot of other layers of defenses. Things don't hit us that often. We have almost suppress capped. So like, we have really good defenses for what we're doing today, which I'm really excited for because like I like playing builds with high amounts of defenses. I just don't really get around to it often. Now, there's some other things that this build does. The next thing is we're also dexterity stacking. The reason why being is the new graft implicit that gives us 1% cast speed per 20 dexterity. We can get a lot of dexterity. Right now we have well over 1,000 dexterity. And this cast speed actually improves the frequency at which Seismic Trap does damage because we can run Architects. Architects, what they do is they turn attacking, I think cast speed, and turns it uh into throwing trap speed. And that throwing trap speed then increases the frequency of the seismic trap. So we're scaling intelligence for physical duration, and then we're scaling dexterity for cast speed. And both these combined means that we get a lot of cast speed and duration. And scaling two stats at once is actually a little bit easier than scaling one stat at once, because right now I'm at 1700 intelligence and I'm at like 1,000 dexterity, and this is done because we have not only we have triple ring, we have triple bricked. So these helicals are bricked in theory for the person that was trying to make them, but we ended up snagging some really insane helicals for our build because they were bricked for someone else. Because if you don't know, what they do is they take the helical and they craft on it, and then they put it into the reflecting mist with the reflecting mist thing, and then it turns it into, it tries to like flip around the stats. And these ones are good for us, but bad for the person who tried to roll them. So we ended up getting them for, I think like, it was like 60 div in total, which was good. I usually don't like throwing around prices, but I am going to throw these around because just to show you like, these were failed helicals. If they were good helicals for quote unquote good characters, right, it would have been significantly more expensive. But yeah, we have a lot of dexterity. And this all feeds into the last part of the build where we are cold damage stacking. So we're running like hatred, we're converting to cold with a hatred's watcher's eye, and that's all helping out because we are running a very large amount of cold to the cores. We have a bunch of megalomaniacs with cold to the core on them. We have a bunch of cluster jewels with cold to the core. If you don't know what it does, it gives you 1% increased cold damage per 25 int, 1% increased cold damage per 25 dexterity, and 1% increased cold damage per 25 strength. You see where we're going here? Every single one of my cold to the cores gives me well over like 10% more damage whenever I click on them because I just have that much intelligence and dexterity. We just have that much percent damage. Right now, I think I have well over 1,000 percent damage or something like that in PoE because of all these cold to the cores. And that scales all of our cold damage while it scales our attack and cast speed with the architect's hands, and then it also scales our physical duration on our seismic trap. And all of this combined leads to a very functional character, a tanky character, and a character with enough damage to do most of the content in the game. Now, like I said, one of the bigger issues with this build is there's just certain content that it's just not good at. Like it's not good at anything that moves a lot. So like Sirius, it's bad with, but it's really good for invitation farming. So that's what I'm going to be doing with it for the most part. But yeah, I'm really excited for this build. One of the only issues we have is the clear is kind of mediocre. I'll be honest, because we have to swap to a seismic trap of the swells for clear, and it's not fun. It's like okay. The problem with seismic trap of the swells is it does not scale with our claws at all. Like at all. Like it doesn't scale with our claws because it's like normal seismic trap, but it has no duration. It just releases a few waves. And that's good for clear. That's good enough for clear. Like we can throw them down, have them clear, right? But for single target, they're absolutely awful. So we have to swap back to seismic trap, normal one, every time we get to a boss, which is really annoying, but it's just how it is. But seismic trap of the swells like doesn't feel that good for the build either. The clear is questionable, right? But we are just invitation farming, so we don't need insane clear, right? But it is something important, and I am going to look into other things if you guys have any suggestions. Pretty much, it just needs to be a fizz skill and then convert it into cold. There's a lot of ideas. I think I have an idea of how to fix it, but we'll talk about that in the next video probably. But I'm having a lot of fun with this build. I'm having a lot of fun with the Path of Exile League. Like, I'm falling in love with Path of Exile again. So you're going to see a lot of Path of Exile videos from me. Now, with all that being said, this has been Dread, off to go seismic trap a bunch. And let me tell you, this shit's laggy as hell. Oh my god, it's so fucking laggy.